Radio. From firearms and Second Amendment rights to personal freedoms and government intrusions. Listen here Sunday nights at 9.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. President Trump at the UN yesterday offering a powerful statement about religious liberty at home and abroad.
The United States is founded on the principle that our rights do not come from government, they come from God. This immortal truth is proclaimed in our Declaration of Independence and enshrined in the First Amendment to our Constitution's Bill of Rights. Our founders understood that no right is more fundamental to a peaceful, prosperous, and virtuous society than the right to follow one's religious convictions.
Yeah, powerful statement given the audience. They went on to describe how 80% of the world's population lives under some form of repression when it comes to the expression of their faith. Think of Islamic theocracies and, look what's happening in China right now with the human rights abuses against the Uyghurs, a Muslim minority in China. So many examples, Coptic Christians in the Middle East. We could go on and on and on.
Yeah, we had our guest on this. 4,000 plus Christians are killed every year around the world.
Important statement for him to make, and putting it right between the eyes of so many despots that represent their countries at the UN. In 1939, as you know, Amy, being a student of Supreme Court jurisprudence,
of course,
in the case of Hague v. CIO, the Supreme Court explained that whenever the title of streets and parks may rest, wherever the title of streets and parks may rest, they have immemorially been held in trust for the use of the public, and time out of mind have been used for purposes of assembly, communicating thoughts between citizens, and discussing public questions. That is a public forum, generally thought, and that was confirmed in 1946 in the Marsh v. Alabama case. So where are we today as we have a case filed by Wheaton College students, Wheaton College, Wheaton, where I hail, God's country.
Pleasantville, Dan.
That's right. Four Wheaton College students were proselytizing in Millennium Park, and they were asked to stop doing so, asked to leave. They have filed suit saying that Millennium Park in Chicago, the rules there, improperly restrict freedom of speech in a traditional public forum and infringe upon the students' right to exercise their religion. For more on this matter and the case, we're pleased to be joined by John Mauck, who is a partner at Mauck and Baker, who is representing the Wheaton College students in question. John, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good to be here.
So, I've done the shepherdizing work for you. I won't bill you for that. But
yeah, he will. Be careful.
Give us the
in 6-minute intervals.
That's right. I time my 6 minutes. Give us the argument, particularly against what I'm sure the city of Chicago will argue, which is that these restrictions at Millennium Park are legitimate time, place, manner restrictions.
Well, they're way overbroad. You've got 25 acres here, and there's plenty of room for everybody and every opinion. And it isn't just evangelists and students wanting to talk about Jesus. It's potentially Bernie Sanders or a man from Birmingham coming in with his followers and talking. It should be a free place for everybody. You have to bear in mind that the museums are off limits. The stores are off limits. The restaurants are off limits. The offices are off limits. So there's really not much place for people to go to hear different opinions and the debate or speeches that might accompany them, except the public parks.
But Chicago, so not to interrupt you, but Chicago would argue, well, this is not a content-based restriction, which would be violative of the First Amendment. This is just a general restriction, irrespective of content, which puts us on solid legal footing.
Yeah, no, it's not content based. It bars all speeches and all distribution of written materials. So it comes down heavy on everybody. I talked to Pat Quinn yesterday, and they've been trying to circulate petitions to limit aldermanic terms, or they're planning to do that. They were trying to submit petitions to limit the mayor's terms, and the police and security guards harassed them, and they couldn't pass out their petitions freely. It's about everybody's freedom of speech and freedom to hear and freedom to talk about Jesus.
Well, I've walked by Millennium Park on mornings once, the sun is rising, and I see, some Muslims laying down blankets and praying to Allah, and nobody has come up to them and stopped them.
Well, I don't suppose under the current rules that Mayor Lightfoot has enacted, and this is really a question for her in terms of civil liberties. Mayor Emanuel restricted the rules. We tried to get the rules amended and got some of the permit requirements dropped, but they reenacted the rules on August 26th and said no speeches and no distribution of written materials. I suppose if you come and pray quietly, fine. If you're going to have a call to prayer, I don't know, is that a speech? What is a speech? Is it 30 minutes? Is it 2 minutes? If Jesus came in and taught his disciples, would he be giving speeches? It's vague, and speech is a primary ingredient. Or if you're passing out petitions, can you hand out materials that explain why aldermanic terms ought to be limited? No, can't do that. So trying to divide the type of speech is kind of like content regulation in a way, because it's giving them the right to say, well, this is okay and this isn't okay.
But there are, not all public property is treated the same by the courts, right? There are non-public forums, there are designated public forums, and then there are traditional public forums. And you're arguing, of course, Millennium Park would be a traditional public forum, the way the courts have previously treated the streets or parks, and thus people should be able to freely express.
I'd use the word quintessential.
Okay.
This is the most basic, the most fundamental place where we're free to go to talk to other Americans, or Americans are free to go to listen to different opinions and what's going on. We need more speakers, actually, and the park is huge. There's plenty of room. The city has no valid reason to restrict 10 out of 11 areas of the park. They've actually created by words that say these are now rooms.
Yeah.
So
there's 11
they're not
rooms?
traditional areas anymore, because we've decided in our regulations to call them rooms. And in 10 of the 11 rooms, there are no speeches and no handing out of written materials.
Is there would you find like a permitting process legitimate? In other words, having to secure a permit to be able to proselytize and pass out materials at the park?
No, not at all. That's just going to interfere with, for example, our clients. They come down on Friday evenings after classes and hand out literature, and they may do some street drama or park drama, and having to get a permit is going to slow them down. And there are people who come by spontaneously and want to hand out Bernie Sanders materials. No, can't do that. Stop. You got to get a permit.
Is there any possibility of interfaith support or non-traditional support? I mean, the Christians and Jews and Muslims and Buddhists and Hindus come together and say, no, I get what the Wheaton College kids are saying, and we certainly want to have the same right to express ourselves however we want in Millennium Park and other quintessential public forums.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in fact, this litigation is on behalf of everybody of faith and all the politicians and people who are political activists. They can't go and give speeches or hand out materials either. So it should be a coalition of all of those groups. We hope we're going to get people praying, and they have the right to join the lawsuit as interveners if they feel their rights are being restricted too. So
And back when
we're hoping we're leading a group effort.
Excuse me. Back on December 7th, when this group tried to pray and hand out materials at Millennium Park, was anybody arrested? Did police arrive, or how were they escorted off the property?
No, back in December, the city had a different theory. They said this was commercial speech, and you were trying to get people to buy into your religion.
Sell Jesus?
And they said,
okay.
Jesus isn't commercialized.
and so they walked away. But the current legislation or rules were adopted on April 2nd of this year, and they said you can't speak and you got to get a permit. The city dropped the permit requirement on August 26th, and it was reenacted under Mayor Lightfoot, and I think this is a real question for her, litmus test. Are you going to be the civil libertarian you say you are, or are you going to go along with a bureaucracy that has created 11 rooms out of thin air? It's not a condominium. There's no roof. There's no walls, but you got 11 rooms, and 10 of them forbid speeches and distribution of materials. I wonder what she's going to do, and I really hope she'll take a look at what the park commissioner has done and overrule him, because these rules can be changed quickly.
Well, it will be very interesting to see what Mayor Lightfoot does on this case. You're right about that. We'll be watching. John Mauck, partner at Mauck and Baker, representing the Wheaton College students who filed suit against the city of Chicago for being banned from spreading their word at Millennium Park. John, good luck with the case. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Policies issued by American General Life Insurance Company, Houston, Texas. Not available in all states. For details, visit AIGdirect.com.
Do you have a